So you're a front bencher, back bencher, middle bencher?
I preferred backbench.
Okay.
But they will force you to sit in the front bench also, right?
Right, yeah.
Backbenchers are considered to be naughty. Why? Because I always felt that they had a lot of these insecurities which comes out as naughty or disturbance to the class. Unfortunately, the education system is theory driven in our, even today, even after, so I completed my master's in 2002. So right now, even 23 years, if I look at the data right now, it's not much of difference.
How do I actually find mentors? What is the thing that makes it work? Have you ever thought about that? Like, how do you cultivate those mentors along the way? Because there is definitely a give and take in that relationship. It is not just take, right? There is some kind of an exchange that happens in that relationship.
I started writing to these authors.
Oh, okay.
Some of these authors. And then they will come say that, I'm coming for this conference in this area, then why can't you come?
You also worked with, I think, Kerala RNG team. Then I think you worked with Mumbai Indians and Punjab Kings 11. So considering in generally people are little averse to taking therapy, how do these sports people perceive it?
Surprisingly, most of them had therapists.
Oh, very interesting.
You won't believe that. From City University, New York. He's a professor of medical anthropology. He says that in India, the model should be like Bhool Bhulaiya model. Okay. In Bhool Bhulaiya, what is that? The psychiatrist who is trained in Western psychiatry comes down and he takes the support of the local tantric. Like
when a client comes, like the rings the client wear or the threads they wear kind of gives an indicator of what are the issues the person is probably dealing with.
Exactly. No? Do I need to hide mine?
Hi everyone, welcome to the Backbench Playbook. Today with us, we have Dr. Jini Gopinath, who is a clinical psychologist, my professor from college. He's a hypnotherapist, movie producer, sports performance coach. There are a lot of unparalleled careers that this person has. It's very hard to put it in like one frame. He has about 20 years experience in the field of psychology, as an educator, as a writer, as a speaker, running mental health startups, and a lot more. Today, we deep dive into his unparalleled journey of figuring out his career as a psychotherapist, as while doing a lot of things, which and ideally someone who probably just think psychology as a career in a very linear fashion won't do. And welcome, Dr. Jini Gopinath, for today's conversation. And
thank you.
Welcome to Backbench Playbook. Right.
Thank you.
So, just to begin the conversation with, right? I know you have now like close to teenage son. Let's take you back to your classroom when you are young. What are your early memories of your school life?
So if I divide my school years into two, the primary school and my high school. Primary school was a struggle. I would say that. Struggle because, so positioning myself in that class, where do I position myself? That was a question that I used to ask all those days. Primarily because of a couple of reasons, because my interests were not aligned with the conventional education system.
In primary class also?
In primary class.
Okay.
Because it was every time it was about marks, impressing the teachers in that direction. I found I struggled a lot during that time. And when I moved to my high school, I found that I was able to manage things a little more better. Primarily because of a couple of reasons, because I had a big canvas. I had a lot of things to do at the same time. I was school captain, sports captain. I was into arts, where we had this, you might have heard about this Kolkali.
Yeah.
Right. During that time, we represented the district. We went to the state competition. We got an A grade or something. So I was trying to understand what's my identity, in the sense, where do I fit in? Somewhere I could see that I was trying to, see myself like something like, when I say establish myself, I was trying to see that I was never a good student. I was an okay student. But okay, students had difficulty in positioning themselves in the
Right.
class, right?
So you're a front bencher, back bencher, middle bencher.
I preferred backbench,
Okay.
but sometimes what happens is that when you are not that aligning with the class norms, they will force you to sit in the front bench also, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I was always a backbencher in that way.
Right.
But you could see that backbenchers had a lot of these defense mechanisms.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting thought, right? Backbenchers' defense mechanisms. And being one myself, like what are some of those backbencher defense mechanisms?
So backbenchers, in the sense, we are not part of the mainstream. We don't see the part of the mainstream. Who is the mainstream kid? Who is able to study well?
Right.
Who is able to complete the homework assignments properly? I used to do this on and off, but not every time. And I studied in a convent school.
Okay.
So that added a lot of difficulty into the picture. But when I look back into those days, I found that that system was actually a reflection of the education system of that time. So since you asked the question about my son, I could see that now he likes going to school.
Okay.
To me, it's a surprise because I never enjoyed going to school.
True. Same. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the kind of, it's not really about the pedagogy, I think. It's about the system, it's about the ambience, it's about the education of the teachers, the kind of process and mechanisms they bring into the classroom. That gave me a lot of insights about how to become a okay teacher.
Right.
When I started teaching,
Yeah.
I introduced some of those things that I felt important during that time into my teaching. So to
like what are some of the things that you introduced? I mean, you said that you introduced some of the things in your teaching, right? So what are some of the things that you introduced in your teaching which you learned as a child? Like even when I walk into the classroom, I usually listen to the last bencher. I usually have a conversation with them while the class is happening. But that's my way of kind of knowing that this person is somebody like me in the class who might have a very different way of learning versus the others. And that's how I connect with them, right? So same way, like as a teacher, I mean, you're my teacher as well. So what are some of the things that you incorporated in your teaching practice?
And I was, from the very beginning itself, I was not a very big fan of labeling. Because when you go to a class, there's a tendency for you to get into a proper, these are all good students,
Right.
these are all bright students, these are all backbenchers, like you said. But I just wanted to break that labels first of all. You start seeing them, and everyone has a point. Narrative, for everyone has a different narrative. So if it's possible, try to understand the narrative. That was my primary agenda. So that mean to say that the moment you break that barrier, you will be able to connect with your students and you will be able to see that they have a different narrative. And some of those narratives are very much important to that class to go to the next level in their academic journey. So that is one. And to be, it's not like break that hierarchy also. It's like, see, the conventional classroom teaching is like the teacher like a shower. It's like a shower model. Teacher knows everything. The water comes down. Water cannot go back, right? So I somewhere read that you move away from the shower model and get into that seesaw model. Wherein sometimes let me go up. After some time, I allow you to go up also, right? So that made this entire dynamics different.
You said that you were interested in a lot of things. I mean, which is something like, again, that we notice that children who don't non-linearly learn in classrooms, they tend to be interested in a lot of other things, right? You said you're interested in Kolkali, a lot of sports. And I think when you like track back, if I remember your story, when you went into college, you were also very active in college politics. Why do you get into this experience in the first place? And what skills does this experience give you now that you reflect back on those particular encounters?
Yeah. So I think if I look back, I was a part of this library movement. My every panchayat, every village, they have a library, right? So those days, no TV. Even if you have TV, there's not much options, no mobile phone. So a lot of time. So in the evenings, we had this libraries were open. They're open from 5 to 8 or something. I don't remember.
I think every panchayat had a library.
Every panchayat
had a library at that point of time.
And we had a very old library with a lot of collection of books. So that was one space where I could explore and experiment. So that I experimented a lot in that library in terms of connecting with things and all. 8th standard is when I started. Decided that I wanted to get into psychology because I started reading Nitya Chaitanyadi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. His book, I still remember the name of the book. The title is Introduction to Indian Psychology. I thought that is psychology, and I joined BS Psychology and realized that they're teaching Western psychology. That was
Okay.
a mismatch, but I was able to navigate. That's a different one. But student politics, there's a different different story for that. So when this happened, this started from, like I said, the backbencher, the defense mechanism. Backbenchers are considered to be naughty. Why? Because I always felt that they had a lot of these insecurities, inferiority stuff and all, which comes out as naughty or disturbance to the class. So when I reflect, I could see that I had a lot of those insecurities embedded in my system. So I moved to student politics, not because I was aligned with the ideology of that particular political group or political movement. I just wanted to expose myself or challenge myself or things like that. That worked very well.
Yeah, because usually when you're becoming a political, I mean, by any nature of a student political activist or something, you are actually moving from the backbench to the front bench.
Exactly.
Because then you are like in the front, facing the problems, fighting the same systems, which anyway you rebelled in a different manner. But now you are also the voice for the other kids or other children in your school or college as well, right?
And I found it was kind of controlled rebelliousness.
Very interesting word. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Not randomly rebellious and people see you as a disturbance.
Yeah.
But when you get into these student political movements, those days, it's like controlled rebelliousness. You have an ideology to back so that people don't see you as a disturbance. Instead, people see you as a revolutionary.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I found that as my safe space to some extent. That gave me a lot of momentum in my personal and my professional life. One thing is that from that inferior kid, I could see that I was able to break that barrier. Now, if you could see that one of my primary profession is training. Where does it come from? That came from this, that learning that I had from the student politics. What I'm trying to say is that I had a lot of opportunities where I was able to experiment and I was open to experiment. That's one such reason why I landed up in Bangalore, where I started teaching at Christ University. Right. I was happy in Kerala. I was teaching in one of the department in Kottayam, FG University. I was practicing the general hospital. Things were doing fine, but I found that they're not taking me to the next level. So, and this space, Bangalore as a space gave me a lot of these opportunities to network, interact with people, and where I was able to mobilize it and explore.
Something I've noticed you throughout the journey that I know you for about I think about 12 years is that you're never so comfortable in your comfort zones. You always try to break those boundaries and move into spaces that to challenge yourself. Where does that come from? You said that you are a backbencher and then you had to be a forefront, like a student political leader. So where does the skills of, what are some of the, there are some skills involved in that, right? Like skills of communication, which probably today helps you as a trainer. Skills of leadership that you have headed multiple organizations that today help, today you are using it in different frameworks. So where do you think these things originated for you, and were you able to synthesize at that point of time that, this is going to be something that will be useful for you in the future? Or did you just just connect the dot backwards?
I found that if you get into that comfort zone of, say, for example, teaching. Teaching is one of the very interesting and the most challenging profession. But the problem here is that it's a comfort. Now you'll be teaching the same subject every year. So the initial investment that you do in that particular subject is enough for you to sustain for minimum 5 to 6 years. So it's a comfort. But if you look at that, once you get comfortable in that particular space, you'll be sucked into that space.
Yeah.
Then you may not be able to have time for other things, experiment other things and all. That was one reason why I thought I will have other elements also. And if you look at, like I said, a backbencher, and I realized that in the very beginning itself, why am I comfortable being a backbencher? Because I found that that's basically a space where I can hide my hide my insecurity and inferiority. Because there are a lot of people in front of you which are asking you a question. You know the answer, but you can't stand up and answer that because you are anxious about yourself. It can be about the way you talk. That can be about your looks. While growing up, these are all where our challenges, right?
Yeah.
So the people sitting in front of you you can be comfortably placed behind them, hide behind them. Then I realized that how long I will hide, how long. So that is one question which led me to come out of, and I always had very good mentors in my journey, as teachers, as friends. My partner, she's also from psychology, and she was my classmate. So she knew that where is it coming from, right? So all those people handheld me in terms of breaking that barriers.
And how did you cultivate those relationships? I think some of the earliest things that I learned from you, like I think when you started your practice, supporting with you in terms of building the practice, is the same thing, right? Like I found you as a mentor, and I think I also cultivate the same spirit. Like I have found mentors along my path. Like I had like you, then I'd been there. I have different people along the way. But like for me, like I've never been able to synthesize and look at that and say, how do I create? How do I actually find mentors? What is the thing that makes it work? Have you ever thought about that? Like, how do you cultivate those mentors along the way? Because there is definitely a give and take in that relationship. It is not just take, right? There is some kind of an exchange that happens in that relationship. So how did you cultivate those mentors along the way?
So one is that when I started reading these books and all, I realized that certain ideas, certain things align with my personality or my future goals. So it was easy for me to find out certain domains that I wanted to practice. So a simple example of CBT or hypnosis. Hypnosis always fascinated me. So one of the way in which I found mentors in hypnosis is that I started writing to these authors.
Oh, okay.
Some of these authors, and then they will come say that I'm coming for this conference in this area. Then why can't you come? So I travel to different places. Say for example, my first international trip was to Nepal, where I found that one of my very favorite author was coming. Right. Then to Germany. Then some of these places like Brian Weiss, where I traveled to US to meet him. Or so I found that when you put some of these efforts, they will be able to see that you're not just a random person. You are very serious about that particular engagement. So that was not, here is not taking alone. I'm giving also. I'm spending a lot of energy, time, and money in terms of being with them. So they get a feeling that I value their presence or their information or whatever it is. That's one. Second is networking is an ongoing process. Right? You make sure that you find time for those people, take time to connect with them, read about them. They also spending a lot of time and energy in their academic space. So it's like a give and take. Like you very clearly mentioned, it's a give and take. So I would say that spending time is one thing that you could and find the right people which align with your long-term agenda, so that it's not like you are spending extra time.
Right. So if I sum up your school journey to saying what are some of the critical experience that shaped you, one is probably recognizing your insecurities as a backbencher and kind of using that as an anchor to build different skill sets by being the political, by being active in student politics and exposing yourself to the leadership. Second thing is cultivating those mentors along the way. And just like the background, like the books and the learning that you cultivated along the way. And I think I've always been a lifelong learner, right? You cultivated learning as well. Now, if I take you to your early career experiences, right? Something that I think today, I think most people, I think if any young graduate who's doing psychology is listening to this, there's a lot of insecurity surrounding the profession, especially when you're an early career psychologist, especially about earnings, especially about how most of the models in the market are very aggregated driven. And a lot of those things. So when you started, I heard stories about you selling encyclopedias and other things. Do you want to just share some of those instances of your early career experiences?
Yeah. So here, what happens is that most of the education institutions, the moment you pass out from masters, when you look back, what are the practical things that you have learned for you to sell yourself? You are asking for 10,000 rupees. The question you need to ask is that, will you be able to generate that 10,000 rupees? Employer always look at return of investment model, right? Unfortunately, the education system is theory driven even today, even after. So I completed my master's in 2002. So right now, even 23 years, if I look at the data right now, it's not much of difference. One of the things from a syllabus perspective, I would say that we need to drive it as an end specialty program, like the way Westerners design their curriculum. So when I passed out, even though there were not many institutions, so right now people are aware that psychology as a profession and things like that. When I passed out, psychology was, there's only one specialty, clinical psychology.
Okay,
Our school psychologist, where you are underpaid. So when I passed out,
what is the first salary?
When I passed my masters, it was around 800 or 1,000 rupees. My room rent was 1,200 or something. My father used to say that, what are you doing? Right.
Which today is true in Bangalore scenery also. Like probably they're getting 25,000 and their room rent is almost 25,000.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's the time that I decided that I'll do clinical psychology, because I was clueless at that point in time. But there's one more reason. I still remember that when I completed my 10th, so during those days, you're good at maths, you go for engineering, right? So first group, in that time it was pre-degree. There's no +1, +2. Or you are good in biology, you do the second group. So I was good at mathematics, so I was into first group. But when I passed my 10th standard, so there is something called DC Books used to run this program called Home Library Scheme. So I was a part of that. One of the first books that I bought was written by a person called Dr. Krishna Prasad Sridhar, very famous clinical psychologist in Kerala. The book was Manashastra and Margadadesham, like directions of
guidelines for psychology.
Guidelines for psychologists or directions, something like that. So clinical psychology as a profession, I was already aware of that from reading him. Matthew Vellore was very famous in Kerala.
He was my neighbor.
Then Justin Padamadan. I used to listen to their clippings and all in audio clippings and all in FM and all. And this person was my teacher. He became my teacher when I did my post-graduation. The first psychology book I read.
UC College.
In Kerala University. Postgraduate department, campus. So I was very much fascinated by clinical psychology at that time, because hypnosis, parapsychology, all those things were very popular at that time.
When talking about this, let's also talk about, I think a lot of people who usually practice a psychoanalytical lens or a hypnotherapy lens, they are also asked to be in supervision, right? Like, and they're all, as a therapist, they also have to be in supervision. Why do you think that exists, and why do you think that's critical? Because I've seen both the sets of therapists, people who are practicing this, who dismiss the whole supervision need, and some people say that I need to be in the supervisory process. Why do you think that particular thing exists? And even when we hire people today, I think we get a good 80% of the graduates who never did therapy themselves, who becoming clinicians. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. So there are two components. One is supervision. The other one is personal therapy. I strongly recommend these two for people engaging in psychotherapy. That's two reasons. One is that you are seeing a client, after some time you get involved in that client. So it's like a tunneled perspective. But if you're talking to somebody who is a senior, who is a supervisor, he will be able to tell you that, hey, this tunnel is limiting your vision. Sometimes what happens, CBT, I see that CBT, I invested a lot of energy in CBT, time in CBT. I traveled to US to learn from Beck. But the problem right now is that sometimes CBT may not be the right methodology for that particular individual. But I get obsessed with CBT and I get lost in the process, right? So if a supervisor is able to understand my process, listening to my audios and transcripts and all, he will be able to see that I'm getting lost somewhere. Somebody has to see, to tell me that, for me to realize that I'm going off track. Right, that's one. Second thing, in personal therapy, what happens is you're a normal human being, right? And And as a professional, you might be seeing 5 to 6 clients every day. None of them come in to talk about good things about their life,
Yeah, true.
isn't it? So
Yeah.
where do you block it?
Mm.
Where do you draw the boundary? And sometimes you connect with the client because they're talking about your story from their lens. They're saying about their childhood, and you suddenly connect that, oh my God, my childhood was also like that. And then you're gone.
Yeah.
Then sometimes there's a countertransference comes up and you get lost in the picture. Then you started seeing his life from your lens. So personal therapy is an exercise which help you to ground you. It will always bring you back into the therapist seat.
Then why doesn't it become a mandatory thing in master's programs? I think Christ enforces it, like from what I heard, but a lot of colleges don't enforce that on their students. They have to at least go through some kind of personal therapy process before they become clinicians themselves. Why do you think that gap exists?
So that's also because I could see that in India, the problem is that the licensing process, renewal of the license, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Once you pass out, people think that they are full-fledged clinicians.
Yeah, and that's another joke about it. Like, you've passed clinical psychology in India, you still can't call yourself a clinical psychologist. It's the only country in the world where these kind of things happen.
Yeah, so they have different layers now. So what I'm trying to say that we don't have a structured supervisory process. So in the West, what happens? Some of the countries, unless and until you do this many supervision hours, unless and until you do this many personal therapy hours, you may not be able to renew your license. But here, your licensing procedure is linked with your qualification, not with other variables.
Not with your practice.
Not with your practice.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing some random business, you still can call yourself a clinical psychologist even after 5 years, 10 years also. Because it's not linked with your practice.
Yeah.
So unless and until that comes back into the system, things are not going to change. And this culture should be inculcated during the training itself. They should understand the value of personal therapy. They should understand the value of supervision. Everything is linked with exams. Everything is linked with marks. People are just tunneled to that particular vision, right? That is a problem here. It should be a part of your professional and personal journey. Then things can change. Otherwise, things will continue like this. Yeah.
So, we're talking about building a practice, right? Like, you're talking about your story, early stories of you being in a college, you being a professor. If I remember correctly, I think close to 2012-13 is when you thought about establishing your own practice. You had a very small clinic in Maruti Nagar, if I'm remembering it rightly, right? And what is those initial jumps into someone who had a job, a very secured way of earning, like a 9-to-5 job, right? I think where you're a professor, people, you have a lot of status, you have a lot of value that's associated with it. You're also practicing, I think, at that point of time. But then the jump from there to someone who wanted to set up their own practice. One, like, why did you do that? And second thing is, what are your learnings from doing that particular process?
Okay. So that's a very relevant question because I always identified myself as a clinical psychologist, seeing clients. But that setting that I was in at that point in time didn't have much opportunity in that way. Even though I was teaching clinical papers, so that I enjoyed, but I was not able to have regular clients. That was one limitation. So I had to sacrifice my weekends, compromise on a lot of these family time and things like that. Then I found that that's not going very well. That is a time I thought, let me experiment. And I was very young that time, so I could experiment also, the risk taking. When I look back right now, without any...
How old are you at that point of time?
29 or 30 or something.
Yeah.
I realized that now when I look back, it was without any proper business model. I just
that is
moved out of it, right? And now if I look back, oh my God, how did I do that? But that was a actual reason for me to come out of that so-called secured.
Yeah. But what are some of your early struggles and how did you cope with it?
Early struggle because no business model. First of all, the only business model that I was familiar or that's still very popular in psychology is consultation model. You see clients, charge them, So that's converted to your income. That means to say that your income is directly linked with the number of sessions,
Number of consultations you take.
number of consultations.
So you are the core resource. There is
Yeah.
no, yeah.
And what happens here is that there is a ceiling point for that. Either you see you need to increase the number of clients you see, which is impossible because you'll die soon if you do like that. The second thing is that you need to increase the
Pricing. Yeah.
which there are a lot of questions comes up.
Yeah.
Ethical issues comes up. Second thing is that how then you are narrowing your clientele,
Yeah.
right? How many people can afford
Yeah.
that much? And it's not just one-time engagement; it's a multiple session engagement. So that was the primary structure.
And India don't even have an insurance structure around that.
No, we don't have that. That was the time I started thinking about other models. Like, can I bring in training as a variable? So I decided to design some training models like hypnosis levels, workshops, CBT training models. Then another thing that I engaged was, anyhow I'm getting my clients by default. So how do I have products for them? So that's the time when I started having CDs, hypnosis CDs for them, books. I started writing self-help books for them, so that this is a model that I'm going to do. Why can't you take it? And I priced it as a part of my consultation itself. So I started having multiple processes. I also had at that time, I still remember, I had an intern where we developed a software.
Mindstein.
Mindstein. You're also there at that point.
I was there,
right?
Yeah.
So these products helped me to sustain my business. Initially, I thought that I was getting suppose 40 or 60,000 as a full timer. I just need to generate that much amount. That's enough.
Yeah.
I was calculating that way. Then I realized that that's not enough.
Yeah.
You have a lot of other.
It's like you need to have at least 5x the income to kind of manage the same
thing.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, if somebody wants to leave their full-time job and start a practice like this, I will strongly recommend them to have a proper business model before they jump in.
So let's talk about this business model pieces, right? Now you've built business, you've built your own practice, then you build practices for others. Today you're building like probably a global company for the future. What do you think constitutes those elements of that business model today?
In a private practice?
Yeah.
I would say that you are the core resource, by the way. People come to see you. Right. And consultation model is the primary model. But along with that, is it possible for you to have something like a subscription model? That another model which I tried and I found it very well. Second one was
subscription is like basically giving a group of sessions together instead of just selling one session. Exactly. So that the client is hooked to come for like a longer thing, because something you see in psychology practices, clients tend to drop out after 3 to 4 sessions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like bundle it. Now right now I'm charging suppose 1,000 rupees. If you buy this product, you will get it for 850 rupees. Along with that, not only sessions, along with that 2-3 phone calls or messages or something like that.
So what a value add to it, you start pricing it separately as different components.
Exactly.
Like I give you a worksheet or workbook to do some self-practice.
So along with that,
right?
worksheets, along with that, there will be CDs at that time. Then if you want to talk to me in between, then that option is also available in that. So these product, is it possible for us to productize it, this engagement, so that one single client itself will give you a different range in your financial engagement?
Is there one moment in that early start phase where you started your own practice that you thought that I'm gonna quit this and go back to teaching or something like that? Like I think it's security versus insecurity that entrepreneurship offers is equally rewarding as well as challenging. Was there any of those phases? And then if you face something like that, how did you deal with it at that point of time?
So multiple times, by the way. But so what I did was in between, I took up part-time engagements with multiple organizations. The priority was teaching, so I could connect with students, and I was using it as a funnel to get into my students to get into my training. So that was one model that I tried. So after 3 years of full-time practice, I got an opportunity from Optum International, unit of United Health Group, where they wanted me to lead their India clinical operations. So that was a break for me.
And Optum is a global mental health provider, works in
Exactly.
AAP. They work with some of the biggest corporates, clients out there.
The biggest in the world.
Yeah.
Uh,
But why did they find you?
So they found that I'm a clinician. I worked in different portfolios. I also was into training, so I was visible at that time
Right.
in the national front.
Yeah.
So they found that I can be a good fit for that particular role.
Yeah, because making yourself visible is also a large part as
Exactly.
a psychotherapist, right?
Exactly.
Because if you like, I mean, remember your early stories of you carrying your books and selling it in conferences, that and everything, to probably a global health major coming and saying that we want you to head our clinical operations. I don't think that Jeb. I mean, that's probably like the dream of probably most of the people hearing this podcast. But there will be some logic or some steps that you took that took you to that particular opportunity being out there.
So becoming visible or making myself visible was my agenda. But that's not for this job. But
Right.
my agenda was to get more clients on one side and more students for my training programs. So I was putting a lot of effort in terms of making myself visible.
So were you making enough money at that point of time, which was like compensating for you leaving Christ and running
Yeah,
that
by
thing?
then I was kind of established. My clientele was picking up. It was picking up well, and I was also getting a lot of these workshop inquiries. I was able to convert it into real business at that time, national level.
So Optum finds you, you get into that role. What does running your own practice versus running a global practice, which is already established with clients, look like? What is the difference different set of skills that you learned at that point
One
of
of
time?
the advantage of that, they allowed me to have my private practice because it was not there was no conflict of interest, but not during the work hours. That was only working days. That was only concern they had. It taught me a lot. By the way, if you look at Optum, the kind of model, there's a global player. They had systems in place. It's already been in this industry since quite some time. So they taught me how to run a business in a very structured format. But after some time, I found that
So, in a structured format versus a private practice, what are some of those structures looking
no,
like?
I was running it by myself, right? Everything was run by me. If you look at cold calls I used to make, talking to the client, converting it into a business, and executing it, going there and executing it, everything was done by me. But where I joined Optum, it was very structured in the sense we had departments for everything. We had a marketing department, we had an account management department, we had a sales team globally, and we had a clinical team, full clinical team with 20-25 in-house psychologists and more than 100 part-timers, affiliate model. And we had more than 200 clients in India. So I used to travel to different client companies. So the talking to the leadership, I used to accompany the sales team to pitch this idea, to convert this into business. So I was able to, they mentored me. In one way,
Right.
if I look at it, that was a mentoring process for me. I learned the business from them. But I found that somehow that's a time where I had this dilemma where some of these models that they wanted to implement in India was from a US, UK perspective. Those learnings from UK and US was not fitting into the system. That was a time where I started associating with the startup, mental health startup called Your Dost in India, the first online platform.
So I think then you moved from Optim to Your Dost. So one thing I wanted to know is like, see, a lot of people who start in this field, right? One blockage they have is that, oh, I'm a clinician. Even if I'm heading something, I'm only going to do the psychology part of it. Like you said, you went for sales pitches, you help them close that particular thing. Because at the end of the day, it's very hard for someone who's just probably joining the sales role from a non-psychology background to understand how to sell psychology, right? So I think you need to, you're also learning over there, but you're also building that skills in the team that's belonging to you, which I feel is like, even at the organization that I run, there's some mental barrier that I have to overcome with some people. They're like, we are clinicians, we'll only do this. we're not willing to do the other parts that is required for the org to implement things on the ground. I know personally you've been someone who done that. Like, so what is your advice for somebody like that, or have you come across people like that in your teams, and how did you deal with that mindset?
Okay, so I would say that these are all part of the entire system. If you want to work in this ecosystem, I would say that you need to experiment and engage in almost all these job roles. And when you work in small teams, the boundaries cannot be defined that way. Boundaries are not defined by your qualification. Right. It's about helping, supporting each other so that your growth can be accelerated. I would see it in that way. Right. You are only into marketing, I'm only into clinical. Doesn't make any sense. If we work together, it's like a relay race, right? So that the distance that we can cover will be more.
Right.
Simple logic. So that was the only direction that I took at that point in time. So like I said, a lot of mentors helped me in that line, my managers in the company. And at that time, I had an opportunity to work with a lot of these corporate guys before Optum itself, where I was a part of these TA learning groups.
You also worked with, I think, KLRNG team. Then I think you worked with Mumbai Indians and Punjab Kings 11. Was sports an area of interest, or just because it came in your clinical direction, you took that up? And what did that space where you work with some of the elite cricketers and players in the country taught you?
See, I was interested in sports, but I was not interested in very much interested in cricket per se, by the way. My interest was in football and judo and things like that. But this came up in some of my clinical interactions, in my training, one of my training attended by one of the very very important person from a sports company, and he was very much fascinated by the concept of hypnosis. So he started thinking that why can't we use hypnosis in sports, and I got the opportunity. So if you look at it, if you read some of these sports psychology books, like there's a very interesting book called In a Game of Tennis.
In a Game of Tennis.
Tim Holway. So in a Game of Tennis, they have written one more book called In a Game of Golf also. They say that when a player goes out on the field for playing, he's playing on two fields at the same time. One out there in front of you, one between your ears. That means here. Right. And if these two things are not congruent, then you're gone.
True. So, I mean, like, I watch football, and sometimes you see strikers scoring almost like 6-7 matches together, and then they go missing for like the next 20 matches. Like, they don't even score one goal.
As simple as that. How to make these two things congruent. So that was the discussion wherein which we started exploring that. And hypnosis, if you look at performance coaching, it's a combination of hypnosis and cognitive behavior therapy, cognitive behavior model. You need to have your thinking straight, manage your anxiety, your performance issues, and also from a hypnotic perspective, how do you take out all the skills that you have. So very beautiful analogy given by one of my professor is to say that you run for 100 meters, you time it. Next time you run the 100 meters, but chased by a dog. Definitely you'll be running faster. But you ran the same 100 meters. Where is his energy coming from? So he says that it's locked up inside. Evolutionary wise, that is required because otherwise you will end up in injury. But is it possible for you to take it out whenever you require? So the hypnosis will help you to take it out.
Very interesting.
So we used to do it.
So how did the sports people react to it? I mean, I know you worked with some of the best teams, right? Like I think Mumbai Indians and Kings 11 Punjab. How is their response to it? First of all, like, if I'm a sports person, I don't think I've learned every theory of psychology. And second thing is that it's like, for them, it's like an additional thing. It's not something they would enjoy, right? It's not playing cricket. It's not getting coached how to bowl, how to bat, or whatever it is. So considering, like, in generally people are little averse to taking therapy, how do these sports people perceive it?
Surprisingly, most of them had therapists.
Oh, very interesting.
You won't believe that. Most of them had therapists. Most of them used to work individually with therapists. Our agenda, we had individual sessions also, but our agenda was group sessions. Primarily because most of these people who play in IPL, they come from different countries, first of all. So after this game, they're going to play against each other, right? So they had difficulty in getting into the team. So team building was our primary agenda. Second thing, they how to the performance element itself. But we worked in two levels, individual levels and group levels. And I could see that they were open when it comes to group levels. Individual levels, they had apprehensions because we are completely new into the segment. And it was a package program, like 1 month we are there. So the rapport, the confidentiality, those kind of things, they had concerns. But after 1 or 2 sessions, they were able to surrender. They became vulnerable in the process and all. But it was surprising for me to see that most of them, when I say most of them, more than 90% of them were open to this idea of taking support. Taking support in the sense, not the physical. They're only into that physical coaching stuff, right? They were open to take support from other.
They saw it as a very important piece. Like they also see the mind as a very important piece in terms of how they perform and react as well.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing. I feel like, at least that's something I feel like, considering we have, like, I think recently they were saying that 12.5 billion views or something on the last IPL. Probably, I think, that's something that the people who are watching it should also think about adopting in their lifestyle.
Yeah, they should.
Right? Yeah. In terms of like when you're working in that sports role, and I know that again that came through your networks and connection, because I think something that would be surprising for a lot of people who are probably listening to this podcast is like, how do you get these opportunities? So like you said, you networked and then people connected you to that opportunities. And I don't think it was your skill set, but you said yes to it and then you kind of learned. Where does those confidence come in you to say yes to these opportunities and then go and figure it out?
Like I said, I always found that unless and until you explore, how do you know that whether you are capable or not?
True. Yeah.
So I was always open for these ideas. I say yes to everything when it comes to these kind of opportunities.
Which I know.
And then later I will go back and check. Because I could see that everything comes under the larger frame of psychology.
What is the check? That's a very interesting thing. What is the check also that you do that to know that whether it is in alignment with you or not?
See, first of all, it should be in the larger frame of psychology. Now, I don't want to do anything outside psychology as a professional, right? That's one. Whether it's teaching, anything to do with psychology, I will take it up. But the skill set, if it is not matching, I'll definitely go back and tell them also. But I will always request them to give me a chance to experiment that. If me as a professional, I'm not able to align with that, them, the clients, they are not able to see value in adding me. So there's a mutual agreement that I will withdraw from that.
So then, is that the reason why you did not pursue this IPL gigs?
Yes, one of the reason.
Okay.
Another reason is that I could see that that's only certain periods, right? It's not like a full year engagement. So then I have to do certain things. Say if I'm running a clinic, I have to shut down my clinic for 2 months or 3 months or something like that, which I don't think I've invested a lot in getting my private practice or developing myself in that particular segment or developing a company to that particular level and leaving that completely and moving into a completely different area for some time. If I was able to combine these two, I might have had continued, but I found that that's completely disconnected.
Yeah.
Which I found not.
So I think balance is a very overrated term, especially when you are building something as a private practice or business or something like that. You'll have to negotiate somewhere and something should be sacrificed to run the other thing.
If it is a sacrifice, I would say that I won't go for that.
Yeah.
If it is a compromise, I will take it up.
Very interesting. Okay. Yeah. So you talked about your experience in your dost building an online mental startup. I think at the same time you're also associated with Insighte to, I think, where we are also launching in the space. We're also trying to figure out what we can do. Like at a time where we are doing online counseling when 1 GB data was there for a month, right? So what are some of those early experiences in the Indian mental health startup ecosystem? Today, I think there is like probably 100 plus startups in the mental health space. What are some of your early experience in the space, and what are some of the early learnings as well?
No, it's the stigma and discrimination itself. So when you look at your dost, if you look at the journey of your dost, the founders are from IIT and IIM, so they had that academic background to market themselves.
So do you think techies make better founders than psychologists?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But
where do you see a lot of them?
But I could see that their training is different. Their training is more open to taking up entrepreneurial risks. But that's not the way psychologists are trained.
Right.
Psychologists are always trained to work in a specific setting under somebody. That's what because this is how it's been, the message is been passed like this. That's the kind of thing I have always heard. But anyhow, so in the initial stages, it was into B2C, then moved to B2B, because B2C was not.
What is B2C?
B2C is basically about directly to the clients, the population.
So if I'm your host, I'm talking to the clients directly. I have a therapist and they're talking to the clients.
Yeah.
And so B2B is like, I am working through, say, another company and I work with the employees in that company.
Exactly. Right. So sustainable business model, they found that B2B is much more lucrative, even though the company's focus was B2C, because 25 to 30% of Indian population require psychotherapeutic or counseling support. That was agenda why it was developed.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the VC data. Like everybody comes and says there's 30 crore population in India who needs mental health support. But I feel like all the mental health startups put together probably work with 30 lakhs of them. Right? And why do you think that huge gap exists?
The stigma, discrimination, the awareness campaigns are not enough. I would say that the Indian system we need to start openly talking about these things. Even now, if you look at it, majority of the movies, the jokes are centered around your mental health concerns.
Yeah.
Your size, your shape, the way you talk, your color, everything is, even today, that can still trigger a laughter.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So we are still stuck there. Right. We might require to have a different marketing model, awareness campaigns, so that we can come out of this stigma and discrimination, where B2C would be a good catch.
Let's, because you're doing that dive, let's also look at AstroTalk, right? And AstroTalk, AstroSage. I mean, the players who are coming in the, how do you put that? Indian transpersonal psychology space?
I would say I would like to see astrology as entirely different.
Okay, sure. So, but like their per daily revenue is I think 300 crores or something like that, right? Where maybe the numbers are wrong, but my point is like the biggest mental health startup put together in India does 100 crores, 200 crores. Why do you think that discrimination exists in that the split between what an AstroTalk is able to do from a B2C lens versus why mental health startups in India has never been able to crack that space?
That there is a very interesting study which says that when you look at the personality component, locus of control, Indians have external locus of control.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So if you look at cognitive behavior therapy, demands an internal locus of control.
So what is external and what is internal?
So it's like, say, I believe that I'm suffering because of my bad karma. Then do I go to a psychologist or I go to an astrologer?
Yeah.
That's how.
And the psychologist is not validating that external karma.
No.
Yeah.
If that's where the transpersonal comes in, where he can say that those components are also existing, but why can't we think about? So the free will fate hypothesis debate. There's a fate, but you have some amount of free will also. Why can't we work on the free will so that fate won't take over the entire life? That combination is not happening. That's the reason why people go openly to AstroTalk. They don't mind consulting AstroTalk. Why? Because of these kind of issues. Their personality component, their apprehensions are not discussed in therapy rooms, and therapists are not trained in the Indian side of the cultural nuances. They are still believing in Western psychology. So there's a disconnect.
Yeah, I remember, I think once I came to meet you, you're talking about like when a client comes, like the rings the client wear or the threads they wear kind of gives an indicator of what are the issues the person is probably dealing with.
Exactly. Yeah. Do I need to hide mine?
No, it's a good thing to talk about it. So let's say I'm a psychologist who's ready to break those barriers and boundaries set by common theoretical learnings. How do I get into this space where I'm able to integrate the Indian practices with my Western learnings?
See, so if the client says that he believes in certain rituals, certain practices, you don't need to reject it. You say that you practice that. Along with that, why can't we do this also? Integrate the so-called Western therapeutic models in the already existing practices of that particular individual. Instead, you try to negate it completely, reject it completely, not allowing the client to talk about it. So I don't think that's going to help anyway, right? So what happens is that psychology should be culturally sensitive when it comes to working with a client. So
Yeah.
what all things worked well in his life in the past also need to be brought into the therapeutic system, right? This is and slowly talk about the stigma, discrimination, and things like that. You cannot go in 1 or 2 sessions. It's a process that you need to engage.
Very interesting. So today an Astro Talk is technically, I mean, some people say, oh no, that's a different space altogether versus mental health as a 2 different space. As somebody running in this space, I actually feel like they're technically all competitors on another side.
Yeah.
Do you agree to that?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel that, Astro Talk should start a counseling vertical. I strongly believe that because you already have vulnerable population.
But they have healers. They have healers, and they have that spiritual healers, and what is it? Aura cleansing lenses. And I think they've started.
They have alternate healing practices. That completely agree. But they also should have these counselors and psychotherapists because they already have a client pool, vulnerable, looking for solutions, looking for changing their life in some way or the other. Why can't they club this also along with the astrology consultation? Right. So I think that would be a best model that they can.
What are some of the risks in getting into, if I'm going instead of, okay, today I'm a person, I have depression or an anxiety, and I can say, I mean, if I'm in therapy, I can say, oh, because my father and mother, I'm having this depression and anxiety, I can go to therapy, or I can go to an Astro Talk. What are some of the, as a client, what are some of the guardrails that I need to know? Like if I go to Astro Talk, these things can also go wrong for me, versus if I go to a therapist.
See, what happens is that if you look at it, what is the difference between a conventional healer and a psychotherapist? Psychotherapists are trained. They know where they understand the psychopathology. They understand where exactly is coming from.
So an astrologer will say, I know everything about the universe, I know all your kundalini, I know all your charts, I know exactly what will happen to you next year. He's also claiming science, right?
Yeah, but he's not psychologically educated. That's only difference here. And psychologists, psychiatrists or psychiatric social workers who are trained in this segment, they're ethically driven also. They know when to refer them to a different practitioner. They know that when to let go of that client or to some other practitioner or admit them or something like that. But most of the astrologers, if you look at it, they don't want to. They see it as a business. I might be wrong, but I see that most of the time they see it as a business and they don't want to let go of the clients. So they keep them till a point where some red flag happens. Right. I would say that if the astrologer, if it's a trained a psychologist who is trained in astrology can be a good fit here.
True. Yeah.
But anyhow,
but do you think that will be the path in the next 10-20 years, considering that you have government which is investing a lot in Indic systems and Indic knowledge and everything, and you have an evolving curriculum that is being enforced by the same government in our colleges? Do you see that integration happening?
Now, if it's a healthy integration, that's well and good. Right. There's a very interesting article by Murphy Halliburton from City University, New York. He's a professor of medical anthropology. He says that in India, the model should be like Bhul Bhulaiya model. Okay. In Bhul Bhulaiya, what is that? Yeah. The psychiatrist who is trained in Western psychiatry, trained in one of the best institutes in the West, comes down and he takes the support of the local tantric to get because why? The client believes in that particular model. So instead of rejecting it, incorporate that in the therapy. I would say that that's the best model.
Have you been able to, because you headed multiple organizations, right? Have you been able to convince any of those organizations to implement a model over there?
Not really, primarily because they would like to compartmentalize
where they belong.
So they wanted to see that.
But a lot of the founders that you were part of it were not technically coming from psychology background.
No, not because of that. One more reason is that there's
a perceptual difference also in the market. Right?
What happens is that they believe that all these models are, they can dilute the ethical processes. I agree with that because sometimes the boundary can be very hazy, which will be difficult for them to market it outside to the larger audience. Because even now, people see it with a lot of skepticism, right? So a lot of energy needs to be spent on clearing that skepticism before you market yourself. So a lot of energy is spent on that. Why do you need to spend unnecessarily this much energy? Instead, you jump into psychology fundamentally and finish it off.
So if you look at it from a lens, an Astro Talk basically is able to identify an answer to which is a greater product market fit to the Indian psyche, where I can just go and reach out to somebody and get an answer for my problem, versus a psychologist where I need to go to a more deeper unraveling of myself, which I'm very insecure about, and where my education doesn't tell me to do any of that. Is the reason why they are more successful than the mental startups.
Yeah.
You worked with those in colleges, right? And I think one of the critical things, I remember that I think a lot of the institutes like IITs and IIMs are those clients. And one of the prevalent issues over there is suicide. How do you think, and now I think a lot of the schools are also pushing to have more mental health programs. Do you think it's essential for them to have these mental health programs, and how does the set support them?
See, what happens is that suicide is a cry for help, right? So what happens is that at that point in time, if they are able to talk to somebody, if they're able to vent out some of their issues, and if they're able to see that there's a different perspective that they can look at, definitely it will help, right? So somebody can presence, somebody is present, available for them at that point in time, can itself make a huge impact in the system. Most of them can have emotional issues. Some of them can have.
And why do these kids in these top colleges have these issues?
See, what happens is that it's a high competition. And when you look at, they're coming from individual colleges, independent colleges, schools, where they were the topper. But when they land up in IIT, all of them are toppers, right? So they are not able to find their space in that segment. And everyone wants to get into the top level because it's linked with placement. And ultimately, you are converting everything into money, and that's what success is all about.
Yeah,
getting.
I think it's a first bencher problem. You're talking about backbenchers. It's a first bencher problem.
Exactly. Yeah. And if
they're so performance driven, they put a guardrail. They somehow crack these entrances. They reach the institute, and then they are competing with the cream of the cream. But then they don't know to switch off the competition and collaborate.
You're not allowed to fail.
Yeah,
you're not allowed to fail.
Right.
Failure.
Is that the institution issue, that institutions are also built that way to suffocate the children?
Most of the institutes like that. They always give that information that, okay, there's a placement coming up, and if you're not able to score this much level,
GPAs,
you won't be able to sit for that particular company coming up. So ultimately, everything boils down to this competition, salary, social status, Insta post. Right. Ultimately, everything boils down to Insta post, right? So that's true.
That's true. Yeah,
that's a problem. Yeah. I want to get first, not because I like it.
Yeah.
I don't have. I will get a content for my Insta and Facebook.
Yeah. I think Insighte works in the school mental health space. So something that we have seen is that the issues that we saw in college students are now seen in school students, like from dating to bullying to performance pressures. Because I think even at a high school level, children are looking at where I'll go to Harvard, or where I'll go to a bigger college or something like that. How do you think a child like that need to take support? Like at what stage in their life should ideally they start seeing a psychologist or seeking support? Because most schools just have like a one counselor or somebody who's not equipped to probably handle the volume of kids in that school.
And I strongly recommend that every child should have minimum counseling hours every year. That's primarily because it's like the kids are like pressure cookers. They don't have control over the flame. So what happens is that, and they come with by default capacity. After some time, it will explode. So we usually, in our system, will wait for them to explode.
We are very reactionary that way than being
preventive. Yeah. Either try to help them, try to change the system by controlling the flame. That's a systemic issue. Second one, is it possible for us to expand the capacity from a preventative perspective? Unless and until you act on those things, other things are all just superficial.
So if a child, like for example, like if I'm a teacher teaching in a school or a college, right? What are some of the indicators that I need to see? And a lot of times parents are also dismissive of these challenges. How do you educate both the set of population to kind of come? Like, for example, government recently launched a 20 list screener for disabilities, but can the teacher implement it in a classroom? Absolutely not. So where do you see systemically what are the flaws in this model? And like how was your those trying to build some different solutions to compensate for it?
The teacher-student ratio is a big problem in most of the schools because teacher will be handling 1:50, 1:60, and she will have multiple classes to take, engage and all. And may not be possible for her to identify each and every individual separately. But if you look at it, if you look this psychological autopsy, which we have done when there is a critical incident happens, we have seen that there are clear-cut markers that these kids might have openly, explicitly told to the surrounding, to the teachers, to the classroom classmates. So what I'm trying to say that if the teacher-student ratio is less, or you have mentoring process in the classroom, you will be able to identify that person is moving away from his previous behavioral pattern. There is something coming up. There's a red flag. There is some changes in he's becoming aggressive right now. He's withdrawn right now. He's not coming up prepared on his regular classroom hours. He's not eating his lunch properly. He's not playing with his friends outside. So there can be some visible markers that teachers can notice, or the classmates can be empowered in terms of noticing it. So these kind of things can help prevent these kind of issues in the long run.
So your child is now going to school, right? Do you see any of these support being there in that space?
It's a small school, so they have some of the support systems where I could see that the peer network is very good. The friendship network is very good. They connect with. Now the good thing about this is the kids are very open and very much available in social media or in these WhatsApp groups and all. So kids are checked during exam time. I could see that they have their virtual combined classes. If somebody is not present, they will call up and check and see like that. So healthy friendship networks can also be enough, even though the system is not very supportive of that. I would say that one way or the other, you might require some kind of a monitoring.
See, I think another thing about you is that you have explored different fields, right? I think if you track your career, you've been a academician, then you started your own initiative, then you kind of mentored like organization like Insighte, then you went to head Optum or you were those, and then you also produced Malayalam movies. You're also producer of I think Joe and Joe, and I think 18 Plus. How did that happen? Like why would a psychologist go and produce movies?
That's a very difficult question to answer. But while growing up, we were all very much fascinated about movies and all. Some of our classmates, college mates, moved into full-time movie acting, script writing, direction. Lee Jojo's Pallisheri was my junior.
Oh, okay.
So Dilip was my school senior alumni. By the time I joined, he passed out and all. But a lot of these people were there. In Alua, there's a lot of movie.
Dhabo movie makers and stuff.
A lot of Nivin Pauly and a lot of people were there. So very much fascinated by that. So couple of my very close friends started actively working with movies as producers, co-producers and all. That was the time I thought that I'll just explore this as a business model.
So okay, now let's talk about a business model, right? How did it align as a business model to you? It's a very high risk, high reward game. So how did you know? Joe and Joe is directed by Arun D. Jose, who is also my batchmate. So how did you take? What makes you like? Okay, this is a movie that I want to invest. How do you keep those guardrails? Because I feel like psychologists are also extremely bad financial managers, from my experience of it. So from that perspective, how do you measure the risk and calculate the reward?
So one is when you start reading the script, when you start engaging in those discussions, you know that whether a person like me, who is completely outside of the movie segment, is, am I getting excited about that particular story itself? That's one. Then I start talking to my friends, my family members about it. Here it's getting excited about it. That's one. Second thing, we also used to play very safe, where we parallelly we start talking to OTT platforms like Netflix. There was a time where these became very much present in this industry, right? And they'll say that this has a merit and we'll consider buying this. So that's the only thing that we need. We just jump in. And most of the time, we worked with small scale
And people
players,
that you know, I guess, like
small scale players, people like we know. Where what happens is that where if there is a loss, they will share the loss. If there is a profit, you definitely have to share the profit.
yeah,
That was the agreement. So it was
it's a very trust-based system. That
trust-based system. There's a risk involved. Definitely, you will lose. There's a loss. There can be a loss, but at the same time, it is a calculated risk.
How do you handle loss?
So I would say that if it's a financial loss, definitely you might need to come up with different plan to get that money.
Sell few more books.
Sell more books, or write more books,
Yeah.
or conduct more workshops. Even in that way, one very interesting statement by Steven Spielberg when he got Oscar. He said that one of the variable for his success was he used to watch every day one single movie. So people asked him, "How do you manage? Because you are very busy, right? How do you manage this?" He said that he started getting up 2 hours early.
True. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Jini, for joining on the Backbench Playbook and sharing your immense learning as a professional. For anyone probably starting in this space, you can probably take a lot of inputs from his life, right? Where he did not see life or learning linearly and did all that is possible to get him to where he is. He became a teacher, he built his private practice, he worked with global organizations. He learned that you cannot only survive on practice, build products on the side, wrote books, even got a PhD in Vedic mathematics, and a lot of different variety of things that he enjoyed doing, including learning 2.5, 3 hours a day. And Jini has always been someone that inspired me throughout my career. And it's been a pleasure to hear him for the last 2.5 hours and sharing about his journey as a psychotherapist, as a person, as a film producer, and as somebody who deeply impacts this mental health space in India. I hope this conversation adds value to you. If you like it, please do like and subscribe this. And also do share it with other psychologists who might benefit from hearing about this more.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation with you because we spoke about a lot of things which are very relevant for this current the newcomers in this field. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.